I need to tell you something about your struggles that will completely reframe everything you have believed about why you are going through what you are going through. Most people believe struggles are evidence that God has forgotten them. What if the exact opposite is true? What if the 3 struggles I am about to describe are not signs that God has passed you by, but signs that He has specifically chosen you for something that requires exactly what your struggle is building in you? Stay right here, because what I am about to show you from one of the most surprising stories in the Bible will change how you see every struggle you are carrying right now. There was a man hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat in secret, in fear, not exactly the picture of someone God would choose for a major assignment. And then an angel appeared and called him Mighty Warrior. Not, you will be mighty when you stop hiding. Not, you could be mighty if you try harder. Mighty Warrior. While he was hiding, while he was afraid, while he had 3 specific struggles that disqualified him, in his own mind. And what God said next, and what God did with him, is going to tell you everything you need to know about why you are struggling, and what it means for what comes next. Stay with me, because before I show you the 3 struggles, I need to show you the context of Gideon's life. Because he was not struggling in comfortable circumstances. He was struggling in the middle of the worst season his nation had ever experienced. And understanding what was happening around him makes what God said to him one of the most counterintuitive moments in all of Scripture. Judges 6. Israel, for 7 years, had been oppressed by the Midianites. Every harvest season, the Midianites would invade, destroy the crops, steal the livestock, leave nothing. Judges 6:6 says, Midian so impoverished Israel that the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help. 7 years of this. 7 years of working and watching everything be taken. 7 years of building and watching everything be destroyed. And in the middle of this national crisis, one man was hiding. Judges 6:11. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah, where Gideon son of Joash was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. A winepress, not a threshing floor where wheat is normally threshed. A winepress, a pit, underground, where no one could see him. He was hiding, threshing wheat in secret, because he was afraid that if the Midianites saw him, they would take that too. And then, in the middle of his hiding, the angel appeared and said, Judges 6:12, The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Mighty warrior. To a man in a pit, hiding from his enemies. And Gideon's response tells you everything about the 3 struggles God chose him with. Because Gideon's response to being called a mighty warrior was not, Thank you, I have been waiting for my moment. It was not, Finally, I knew this day would come. His response revealed 3 specific struggles that in any human assessment would have disqualified him from what God was calling him to. But here is what I need you to understand. God did not call him despite those struggles. He called him with full knowledge of them, which means those struggles were not the problem. They were part of the plan. Let me show you all 3. Struggle number 1. The struggle of feeling like God has abandoned you. Judges 6:13. Gideon said to the angel, Pardon me, my Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. If God is with us, why is this happening? Where are the miracles I heard about? Why does it feel like God has abandoned us? Sound familiar? Gideon was not asking this question from outside of faith. He was asking it from inside of pain. He still believed God had done miracles. He still believed God was real. He just could not reconcile what he knew about God with what he was experiencing. And that struggle, that tension, that I believe but I do not understand, was not a disqualification. It was evidence of a man who cared enough about God to be genuinely troubled by the distance he felt. And God did not correct him. He commissioned him. Struggle number 2, the struggle of insignificance. After the angel repeated, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel," Gideon said, Judges 6:15. "Pardon me, my Lord, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." My clan is the weakest. I am the least. Gideon did not have an inflated sense of self. He had an accurate assessment of his circumstances and concluded, this cannot be me. Not because he was falsely humble, because by every measurable human standard, he was right. He was from the smallest clan. He was the youngest. He was hiding in a pit. And God said, Judges 6:16, "I will be with you." Not, "You are wrong about yourself." Not, "You are actually stronger than you think." I will be with you. God did not upgrade Gideon's human qualifications. He committed his own presence, which means the answer to your insignificance is not self-improvement. It is divine accompaniment. Struggle number 3, the struggle of needing proof before you move. Judges 6:36-40. Gideon asked God for a sign, not once, twice. The fleece on the threshing floor, wet while the ground was dry. Then, dry while the ground was wet. He needed God to prove himself before he would step out. And most Christians read this story and see weakness. Some read it as weakness. Others read it as honest seeking. What is undeniable is what God did in response. But look at what God did. He gave the sign. Both times, he did not say, if you had real faith, you would not need a sign. He gave it. Because God knows that the person who needs to see before they move is not a person of small faith. They are a person of honest faith, and honest faith is more useful to God than performed faith that collapses at the first obstacle. And here is the most important thing about these 3 struggles. 1 Corinthians 1:27-28. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are. God chose the weak, the lowly, the despised, the things that are not the strong, not the wise, not the established. He chose Gideon, hiding in a pit with 3 specific struggles, because what he was about to do needed to be undeniably God. And undeniably God requires undeniably human weakness. Your 3 struggles are not disqualifications. They are selection criteria. Now I want to show you what God did with Gideon's 3 struggles. Once Gideon said yes, because the story does not end with the calling. It ends with one of the most strategically improbable military victories in human history. And the strategy God used was specifically designed to make sure that no one could look at what happened and give the credit to Gideon before I show you the victory. Which of the 3 struggles do you most recognize in your own life? The struggle of feeling like God has abandoned you. The struggle of feeling too small for what you sense God is calling you to. Or the struggle of needing more proof before you move. Type 1, 2, or 3 in the comments, because I want you to see how many people share your exact struggle and how many of them God has also called mighty warrior. Type your number and stay with me. Judges 7. God told Gideon to gather an army. He gathered 32,000 men, and God said, Judges 7:2, You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Too many. God reduced the army, first to 10,000, then to 300 men. Against an army that Judges 7:12 describes, the Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, as thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Innumerable, 300 versus innumerable. And God's strategy, torches, trumpets, empty jars, Judges 7:20. The three companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars. Grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow, they shouted, A sword for the Lord and for Gideon. No weapons, no swords, no military strategy, just noise and light and the name of God. And Judges 7:22. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The enemy destroyed themselves, and the reason God used 300 instead of 32,000 was the same reason he chose Gideon hiding in the winepress, so that when it was over, no one could say, Gideon's strength did this. No one could say, Israel's army won this. Everyone could only say, God did this. And your struggles are God's way of making sure that when what he is building in your life finally becomes visible, everyone who sees it will only be able to say, God did this. Now I want to give you 3 things to do with the struggles you are currently carrying. Not 3 ways to eliminate them. 3 ways to cooperate with what God is doing through them. Because Gideon's struggles were not removed before the victory came. They were the context in which the victory happened. And the 3rd thing is what Gideon did the night before the battle. That I believe is the most important thing you can do in your weakest moment. Thing number 1. Name your struggle out loud to God. Gideon did not hide his doubts from God. He said them directly, If the Lord is with us, why has this happened? I am the least in my family. Let me ask for one more sign. He said the honest version, and God met the honest version, not the performed version, not the church version, the honest one. Your struggle, named before God, is the beginning of the conversation that leads to the commissioning. Thing number 2. Let God redefine what you see when you look in the mirror. The angel called Gideon mighty warrior before Gideon had done anything mighty. God called him by what he was becoming, not by what he currently was. And Gideon had to choose to believe God's definition or his own. Romans 4:17. God calls into being things that were not. He is speaking something over your life right now that has not yet manifested in your circumstances. The question is, which voice are you agreeing with? The one that says, weakest clan, least in the family, or the one that says, mighty warrior, I will be with you. Thing number 3. And this is what Gideon did the night before the battle. God told him, Judges 7:10-11. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. God gave Gideon permission to be afraid and gave him a practical way to deal with the fear before the battle. Go listen. Gideon went and heard an enemy soldier describe a dream that the enemy already believed they were going to lose. And Judges 7:15. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, He bowed down and worshipped. He worshipped before the battle, not after the victory. Before, in his fear, in his weakness, with his 3 struggles still fully present. He worshipped, and the battle was won before it started. Your worship, in the middle of your struggle, is the declaration that the battle belongs to God, and the outcome is already decided. Let me close with this. After the victory, after 300 men defeated an innumerable army, the people of Israel came to Gideon and said, Judges 8:22, Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson, because you have saved us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said, I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. The man who had been hiding in a winepress was offered a kingdom, and pointed back to God. Because Gideon knew what every person chosen in weakness knows, the victory was not his, it was God's, through him, and that is exactly what God is building toward in your struggles. Not a story about how strong you became, a story about what God did through someone who had every reason to stay in the winepress, but said yes anyway. Your 3 struggles are not the reason you are disqualified. They are the reason God chose you, because what He is about to do needs to be undeniably Him, and undeniably Him requires someone like you. If what you are carrying feels heavier than struggle, do not carry it alone. If today reached you, save this video. Come back to it on the days the winepress feels permanent, and share it with someone who is hiding, believing their struggles have disqualified them. Because they need to know. The angel is already there, and he is calling them, Mighty Warrior.